Hi, I'm Kalyan Karmakar, and welcome to the Home Cheffies Bootcamp lecture series. And this is the second one. And we've got our guest this time from ITC Foods, and her name is Anushi Ghosh. So a fellow Bengali, and she's based in Bangalore and doing some really exciting work. And she's in charge of all the digital work at ITC Foods. So whether it's commerce, whether it's digital marketing, and we'll find out more about that. And at the bottom of the screen, this time in stripes, but without the logo, is Nidhi Agarwal, who's founded and heads Booker Workshops. So Nidhi and I, we are together sort of bringing Home Cheffies to you. And the entire idea of Home Cheffies is to sort of sensitize home chefs to the idea of building brands and awakening to the fact that they're very, very powerful brands. And the idea of speaking to our jury members who come from the corporate world and who are experts in building brands is to get tips from them. So thanks so much, Anushi. Thanks for joining. Thanks for all the support from ITC Foods. It's so lovely to have you on.
Thank you so much. I'm so delighted and also a little nervous. So.
Don't be nervous. Don't be nervous. See, my cat Baby Loaf is here. So if any of us run out of words, and he's going to start chipping in.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Right, and Nidhi's seen that many times. Okay, now I want to get the idea of how do corporates like you and your company think of home chefs, and I'll tell you why. Because there's this feeling sometimes, and sometimes which home chefs might feel because they don't see how the world sees them, is that okay? I'm not doing anything great. I mean, I know how to make some lovely curries or pakoras and pickles, and I'm selling it. But it's nothing that this thing, just something on the side, nothing to be that proud of or something like that. Yeah, like these things. So hote hi rehta hai. But you guys are in the food business, and every part of it, from cereals to biscuits to coffee to grains to masalas to ready mixes. So you're like a conglomerate or a behemoth when it comes to food. So how do you people look at this segment, Anushi, the significance of home chefs?
So, home chefs, I think, is a relatively new term, and I think it's been coined ever since digital became a little all pervasive and we all became consumers of digital. But I think anyone who cooks is of utmost importance to a foods company like ours. So because, like you rightly said, we offer a bunch of ingredients, and we also have packaged foods. So anyone who cooks or eats or consumes or gifts, they are all pretty much of utmost importance to us. But over a period of time, you've seen this layer of prosumers of sorts that have emerged. There are consumers, and then there are these layers of people who actually understand what they are doing in the kitchen. I'm not taking away anything from our moms and anyone who's cooking in the kitchen today, but there are people who are actually thinking about what they are cooking, or probably have a little menu in their mind when they're actually kind of cooking something. So I think there is this layer of prosumers that have emerged who very consciously want to kind of choose certain ingredients, want to kind of plate them the food that they cook in a particular manner, or they want to probably romance the food that they have cooked in the form of pictures, and they're putting it up in their social handles, etc. So I think that layer has become very important influencing layer for our consumers, and I think rightly so, simply because as eating out became really a norm in India. Earlier we were not really eating out so much. I mean, if you remember the generation of our parents, we were mostly either kind of going to each other's houses, or probably once in a while would go out. But I think eating out became like a culture of, say, the 21st century, perhaps. Ever since the turn of, when we entered into, say, 2001-2, where restaurants became really all pervasive, people would live in nuclear families, or a lot of people would actually go out on their own, and eating out became like a thing. And as eating out became like a thing, you were really consciously noticing the way the food was being served to you and what you were actually consuming. It was not just a bowl of comfort meal that you were always eating. You were also kind of being a little, educated about it or a little connoisseur about it in terms of what you're kind of consuming, right? So I think that journey of bringing it to home became like a thing as internet became really big. And I think, your Instagrams and YouTubes of the world fueled the growth of how do you kind of do things and create restaurant quality food at home. And I think that's one of the need states that a lot of brands actually address today. So I think home chefs as a category is probably one of the most important influencing layer for us, which essentially enables consumers of our brands to consume or buy what they choose to. So I think they are really, really important for us.
And then no, it's beautifully put. I mean, the centrality of food, which is emerging in our lives and then in our homes as well. And then if you see that there's this other very significant aspect, that's my cat, Baby Loaf. He has a strong point of view on home chefs. So there's this other very significant economic layer which comes in, because a home chef is also someone who's cooking from home and then retailing it. So so she's
Yeah,
putting, he or she's putting
I
the food
would,
out. Yeah,
I would have kind of added. I would like to add there as well. So
yes, because that's a lot
enterprise
of very
is,
significant
yeah.
area.
So enterprise essentially is becoming, and enterprise from home, especially in the case of cooking food for people, has become very like important. And in the last 1 year, and I think we took notice of this phenomenon. We've been taking notice of home chefs as a category for quite some time now. So whether it's trying to enter into community of home chefs so that they could drive brand conversations in some manner, or by getting into Facebook closed groups and kind of trying to kind of establish the case for brands, those are happening for quite some time now. But I think in the last 1 year, what has happened is that ordering out has reduced simply because there is a fear and there is lack of trust from ordering from say takeaways or your food delivery apps of sorts. So especially in the beginning when surface transmission of COVID was a large conversation, although now it's kind of being de-emphasized a little bit. But I think in the beginning, it was a really big thing that, you need to, surface transmission was probably a very important conversation. So I think people actually kind of started or lost trust a little bit in ordering food from outside. And a lot of things happened. Families were stuck at home. There was no help at home. The same people, your mom was perpetually always the person who was cooking. It was always home cooked food. There was no way out. People were feeling stuck. So, and that's where the role of home chefs actually kind of, became really prominent. And you could see home chefs actually mushrooming all over. And there were people who found their calling when it came to cooking, actually by virtue of platforms like YouTube and Instagram. And that's this was, I think, last year sometime in June. We did a little bit of a consumer immersion there because we were thinking that there is something there. So we did a little bit of consumer immersion, and what came out was something which was really jarring, which said that we pretty much found ourselves or found our that enterprise, so to speak, or independence, so to speak, through through the art of cooking. And all that we learned over some video platforms available to us on our smartphones, and it was almost like a crash course to becoming a gourmet chef, or becoming a chef whose food was actually appreciated by people. So you could see people like this home chefs actually mushrooming in building societies or neighborhoods, and people could retail their food at bare minimum of prices, and there was no commercial arrangement of sorts. They would retail their food out. They found a lot of appreciation. You would see the reviews on, or people would find raging reviews from their consumers who would consistently order from them, and it became like a really large opportunity, so to speak, or even a little bit of a lot of brands like ours actually were trying to find their purpose there. Is there something, can we bring alive what we actually believe as a vision of the brand and demonstrate it through the home chefs? Can we give them a vision? Can we give them an enterprise and kind of further them, give them a platform so that they are able to kind of showcase what they have been able to do? So I think that became like an important conversation. And I think that's one of the key visions that brands have actually arrived at. And you will see a lot of work, and we will probably have these conversations very often with you, Nidhi, and of course you, Kalyan, in terms of how do we kind of bring this to fruition. So I think, yeah, that's an important space. Yes.
I think very important thing that home chefs also bring to the table is that little added trust value, you know. I mean, because I think it also comes from the predominance that a lot of home chefs are women. So even the people who are registering with us or have earlier registered with us, you know, for live workshops or Kalyan's workshop on demand, we've seen that at least 90 to 95% of them are women. So the woman of the house cooking, you know, it kind of just brings in that sense of trust automatically, because it's always the mom cooking, like you rightly mentioned, or it's the grandma cooking in the house. And then you think of the home chef, you always think of a woman, or you always think of that one trusting, you know, body who is giving you that food and sending that food over. So I think it just automatically, even if you've not built a good enough brand on or have a great social media presence, that good food quality and that trust just kind of like amps it all up for.
No, that's a good point.
So think,
and
yeah.
No, I think that's a good
So
point,
I think
because also.
I wanted to add here. Sorry.
No, Anushi, go ahead. Then I'll add. Anushi, go ahead.
Basically, see, food and the chefs as a space it's still dominated a lot by men, and I think it's time that there is some kind of balance there, which is great that you're saying that you're finding a lot of women home chefs registering with you guys. I mean, I've also seen a lot of it as actually women home chefs who have been who have kind of learned on the job and bettered and learn from various avenues. And these are self-learned, cooks and chefs who have found some kind of an enterprise. And you really rightly put it that there is that blind faith. And, I have ordered from home chefs myself because, within the building, there is this lady who's been cooking fantastic food. And it is also very thoughtfully crafted. And I like the way the menus are thought through. By the home chefs. It's exactly like how, you would devise a small menu for the occasion in your own family, like what should be the breakfast like and what should be, what should be an evening snack like. It kind of accounts for different kinds of people. So what would be an old elderly person have in your family versus a younger person in your family like to have. So I really love the way they constitute or create the composition of the menu, so to speak. So I think it's very thoughtfully done. There is a very personal touch in all home chef menus, which is, if you eat out, it's a little too transactional, right? At the end of the day, you're probably just buying it from an establishment. There is little personal touch, and on as opposed to what you order from home chefs and what you get from home chefs is way too personal. You feel that you're probably having food from somebody's house. So I think it's a great experience, in my opinion.
I completely agree with that, because what I've seen over the last 1 year, we've been eating a lot from home chefs, and it's not a new phenomena. But I think that with the lockdown and then people delivering it out rather than you're having to go to the home or to a pop-up made it far more accessible. And people became aware of the great quality of food which is out there. And two things which you said, Anushi, I completely agree with. One is the personalization. And secondly, I don't know whether it was Nidhi or Anushi, but trust. And both of these things are very important in building a brand as well. And also the fact that it's women. In fact, when you look at restaurants, hotels and all that, it's male dominated. And you think of those as commercial enterprises. And on the other hand, with women, it's more about soft power. I remember a couple of years back for Times Kitchen Tales writing that if office canteens were manned by women, then and still in a commercial way, you totally get better food. Because after I left IMRB Calcutta, I've rarely come across an agency which has any decent office food. And I don't know, but maybe ITC does. But so that's. But the idea of Home Cheffies also is that as time progresses and as the market changes, like you said that restaurants opened up at one point, then the surface transmission fear went, and all of that. So and you also said that in the beginning there were many who are hardly charging or hardly charging very nominal. which was not really reflective of the work which they're doing. So now for these enterprises to progress and to become significant in their own way, I mean, they don't have to become a restaurant or whatever. They need to then start building a brand so that, you know, people know them. So for example, like you said, if there's someone who does very personalized and thoughtful menus, then people need to know about that person and you know, the way the person looks at it and things. So there are different ways of building one's brand. And I want to tap in to your knowledge from your specialization at ITC Foods, which is about digital, and which becomes a very important area for home chefs, because mass media, if one looks at newspaper or magazines or television, really makes no sense for home chefs, because, you know, the expense versus you know, the sort of markets which they're looking at. So it's more digital, which is Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp groups and things. So in your experience, is it possible to build a brand through digital? And if so, then what works? What has to be kept in mind? Maybe you can even give us some examples from your brands or case studies, however you want to handle it.
Sure. So I think as you rightly said, I think digital is the space to kind of, you know, to find their true voice, you know, most creators. So imagine your home chef as a creator, you know, of content, which is food related, if you will, right? So I think digital essentially is this space simply because it's a democratic space. It is you have your own playground. You essentially find your own niche. And when we talk about niche again, I'll go back to what I notice. Each home chef, essentially, most of them actually stand for some kind of a specialization. So I think you know, either it could be the way you want to design the menu for a particular occasion. I think that thoughtfulness or designing of what you want to cook for a particular occasion to creating, you know, daily menus which take away the monotony, because I think a lot of it is assuaging that need state of, you know, consistently having the same kind of food at home. And then of course, you know, the imagination that home chefs actually bring alive. So I mean, and this, I'll probably borrow some of the examples from our own brand work that we have done.
No, please do so, because you'll be more familiar with that also, the thought process.
So you know, what happens is that we know as brand owners, we do a whole lot of consumer research, and we understand a particular type of usage of the ingredients or products that we offer. But when you leave it to creators, you're actually asking them to go to town with the ingredients. So I have seen the most amazing, recipes being created by the most basic of ingredients. So whether, you know, I'll give you the example of Ashirwad Atta. Atta actually essentially is probably one of the most low involvement ingredients, you know, in the mind of most people. What can you create with it? You know, roti, paratha, puri, and you know, probably bread at the most, right? But if you give it to creators, the kind of recipes that we have seen, whether it's a 3-tiered atta cake to the best of snacking recipes, you know, replacing the basic rice flour or besan and replacing it with atta, so that you are able to kind of make it a little more healthy in the mind of the consumer, right? So the imagination that the creators or the home chefs are able to bring alive through the recipe ideas is amazing. And it almost kind of gives you, as a business owner, you probably think, okay, I just don't have 2 or 3 occasions of consumption. I have 10 occasions of consumption and more. Using the imagination of the home chefs. So I think you pretty much open the possibilities up when you actually work with the home chefs. So, and going back to your question on creating brands, today actually a lot of consumers have become really, you know, adventurous when it comes to, trying out recipes. You just don't want to eat that same old kind of recipes that you've been eating for years, right? So you're very open to eating fusion food, as they say, or very open to eating a quinoa dosa versus rice flour dosa, right? So you're pretty much open to eating anything made of everything, right? There are gluten-free versions of things today. There are keto versions of things today. So the need states have multiplied, and what a product or an ingredient can play a role in has kind of multiplied. So if as a home chef you are able to find your niche a little, it's very important to kind of figure out a niche. It may not be as extreme as finding, calling yourself a keto chef or a gluten-free chef, that then you're kind of shrinking the size of the audiences too much. But what you can do with ingredients, or what's your specialty, is something that perhaps you would want to kind of arrive at. And that could be the starting point of creating, your first, circle of influence. And then that kind of gets multiplied, and you kind of get a little bit of a following. So I think the first step to creation of a little bit of your own brand, perhaps, is to find what you really enjoy doing and what you do really well. And then, perhaps layer it up with what you understand for. It could be the way you plate it. It's probably really innovative, the way you plate it, or the way you create those serving trays, which is sent to when people order in, kind of a thing. And I've also seen, I've ordered from a couple of home chefs who bolify everything, because you're staying at home. Yeah, it's all about bolifying things, right? So it's dal chawal with something, with some kind of a sprinkling on top, which gives you, while at a sense of comfort food, but at the same time there is a gourmet angle to it. So I think find that a little lateral way of presenting what you like to do or what you're cooking, and that could be the starting point of creation of your brand. And of course, creation of your brand essentially is a little longish journey. Sometimes you find it much quicker than you would imagine. And if you do something really different and imaginative right in the beginning, perhaps you find your circle of influence very quickly. And I've seen home chefs really, really do pretty well. Especially in the last 1 year, we've seen a lot of home chefs becoming household names today. And they are, although geography, very geo-targeted, so to speak, or geo-fenced, so to speak, but still they have their own loyal set of consumers. And I think brands then, if you find brands and brands that find synergy with these home chefs, and these home chefs, if you give them a platform, I think it is a very symbiotic relationship between the brand and the home chef.
That's wonderful, and the 3-4 points which I got out of it. One is that the last point, that it's not like a one-day thing. You require patience. I mean, it's like the dal bukhara or the Awadhi biryani, which ITC hotels, the Dampuk biryani, which this thing. Both of them are very slow cooked dishes. You can't toss it up in a hurry. Yeah, so that's one. Then get a unique space, and also like the way you present it, and also something which you enjoy. And I also feel that what has happened with the home chefs coming in, that there's a lot of variety, because and that's the thing between, say, in any sector, between a big brand and so even when media, when blogging started versus, say, newspapers and so on, when it's a big brand, then you sort of look at uniformity, because then you're looking at creating a core thing which can be repeated, scaled up, and all that. While home chefs don't need to go for scale, and therefore they can create a whole bouquet of things. Like a home chef in Mumbai can very well do an Assamese or an Odia meal or whatever, but maybe there might not be the market for doing a Odia restaurant, which again, if I take a ITC hotels example, like if you see the local love dishes which you have in the pavilion restaurants, maybe you might not have enough bandwidth to dedicate an entire restaurant space to the local food, but that allows you to create, and each hotel takes it on. So I think that's very interesting. Okay. And the other thing I want to ask you is that when it comes to digital, and are there any specific things which work in digital? Because you've been in the media space, you've also handled mass media and all that. What is the digital? What is the consumer of digital looking for? The people who are the Facebook fans or the YouTube followers or the Instagram likers, whatever. What are people looking for in the food space?
So it keeps shifting, and you've seen, and it's quite topical in nature. If you look at it, but it's also very intuitive. There is no rocket science behind it. You will, you can get it. Right in the beginning of the pandemic, everything had to have some kind of an immunity building aspect, if you remember, or something that gives you, some kind of strength and immunity and vitamins and stuff like that. So health and healthifying every possible ingredient that you're using, or probably having one magic ingredient which kind of makes the whole dish a little more healthier than it otherwise would be, became like a little bit of a trend then over a period of time, people started looking for comfort meals. And that's where this entire concept of bolifying things, I myself started making, dal chawal with some sprinkled bacon on top and stuff like that. So, bolifying became like, and you would have seen that, a lot of people were doing bold meals of sorts. And a lot of brands were also trying to kind of showcase when, brands today create a whole lot of recipes, right? And to kind of just basically reach out to consumers and can kind of strike their imagination that, okay, you can do these many things with brands, right?
If I can interject for a second, Anushi, that also probably coincided with a time when, we were getting used to work from home. A lot of people were without household help. So, you could take as many bowls and make a thali, but then you would have to wash them and you'd have to cook for each of them. So one was looking at like one dish meals to make convenience sort of thing. And that's when the bowls also may open one's, imagination to that. Yeah, please go on.
A lot of convenience based.
Yes.
A lot of convenience based.
Yes.
And then festive season came in, and you didn't really want to kind of, again, you had to do something at home. One of the things that I've noticed for festive season in India is, and there are lots of Indian festivals, right? And somehow these Indian festivals, the dishes that you make for Indian festivals need to have some kind of a Western ingredient. And I'll just give you an example of, the chocolate-based ingredients that we have, or chocolate-based products that we have. Everyone wants to make a chocolate barfi. Everyone wants to make a chocolate gujia. Everyone wants to make, chocolate flavored kheer or a payesh or whatever it is. So I think, people want to really, really experiment with and when it comes to digital, if you just look at the search patterns of consumers month on month on month, there is a little bit of an algorithm that you will arrive for yourself. It has a big bearing on some occasions. Each month in India has some kind of a festival in it. Topicality becomes the flavor of the season when it comes to searches of what the consumer is actually looking for. So one part is actually, the occasion-based food. The other part is innovation in regular food. So how do I consume or make something with a little bit of a twist when I'm stuck at home? So I think, the offerings, and that's how I think, you will see a lot of YouTube creators. Actually, YouTube is a great platform to look at. So the YouTube creators actually are home chefs in their own right, if you think about it. And they have their own geographical nuances. They have their own set of people that they've kind of garnered over a period of time as followers, because the people who follow them found value in what they were kind of cooking, right? So I think all of them essentially follow a very fixed kind of a trend. They have 2 or 3 content buckets that they kind of address. One content bucket, as I said, is topicality based. It could be festival, it could be Mother's Day, Father's Day, Valentine's Day, whatever it is. The other is about regular innovation. How do I really create that small twist in regular meals? And the third piece is probably, how do I present food, feel like I'm eating something which is really in a fancy restaurant, and do the same at home. So I think 2 or 3 of these buckets, if you really closely observe, and if you are able to kind of cater to consumer needs in that manner, I think you are home. You will find a good circle of influence to begin with. And home chefs, I've understood that they actually are a very big word of mouth phenomenon, to be honest.
Yes.
I think they are driven by that, the word of mouth communication. I think each of their followers become human mediums for them.
Because their customers get invested in them. Like, this term which we use in marketing, brand advocates, they actually, those are very good. Those are very good points which you made. And And,
I have
and you know, a lot of these home chefs which one has been following, they have all created certain niches for themselves or certain patterns or whatever. I just want to ask you one question leading to that part where you said about the twist. Um, what home chefs have also done, and I want to point of view on that, is that sometimes it's not necessarily an innovation, but they are presenting food from their pantry which is otherwise not accessible. Like, for example,
Yes.
you know, we order a lot of food from this Parsi home chef who comes from Gujarat originally. So, you know, she does the rural Parsi food. So it's not that she's doing an innovation on that, but it's not available. So I think that that's also one thing.
So
Nidhi,
that's
you
the
were,
part of your niche, perhaps. So
yeah,
that's
so
the
the
part of
niche
your
becomes,
niche, perhaps.
yeah,
So some of the kitchens actually, give you things that you will really never make, or
hmm,
you don't even know it. They pretty much delight you. You almost kind of take notice of, for example, Bihari cuisine. I think a
yes,
lot of home chefs revived the Bihari cuisine and created a whole lot of interest from regular consumers.
yeah,
I also remember that Bohri cuisine. I mean, how much
Bori,
have I
yes,
eaten of Bohri food? I mean, till some of the home chefs really made it of
yes,
interest to consumers, right? So I think it does revive a lot of the lost, some of the food, or even northeastern cuisine. A lot of, and I've seen that in Delhi quite a bit. That a lot of home chefs actually dedicate themselves to creating northeastern cuisine, which otherwise is not even available. You probably have to kind of travel to northeast to have it, and
yes.
that creates a really large opportunity for home chefs to kind of establish their niche.
I think also
Nidhi,
from the
you were saying something, yeah,
point of
yeah.
view of the consumer these days. So I was very recently, for about a month or two now, I've been helping this one home chef here in my hometown in Nasik, to grow and do a couple of things. So they were not, since I'm from the agency background, it's very easy for me to, set up an Instagram, do this, do that. And a very interesting factor that I actually saw is the Instagrammability of the food,
Right.
from the consumer perspective. So I think it's not only about trying something new and just having the fun of experiencing something that's completely out of your usual cuisine selection, but it's also the fact that it's so
Presented.
cool. It's so cool to put it up on Instagram and show people that we're trying something new today, and oh, we completely got this cool box which had like 10 things in it, and or just got like a Bihari cuisine because people don't usually
Hmm.
try that. So I
Yes.
think the Instagrammability bit of it, I don't know if it's even a term, but I think that's also kind of catching on, especially with home chefs, because then people feel that they're responsible of promoting, they're responsible to promote something new, they're responsible to put it up, talk about it more, and things like that.
So a meal becomes a CSR then.
Yeah,
Your
of
lunch becomes
course.
a CSR activity.
Yeah,
No,
it feels good,
but
right? It feels like, oh, you're
Actually,
supporting someone.
I have a little bit of a point of view there, and what I have noticed that if it's too manicured, if you put it out as a too manicured a shot, then the believability comes down. You actually, and I've seen that, and that's what a lot of very successful creators will also tell you. And I think that's been the conversation point for beauty influencers quite a bit. That if you look too doctored or too made up, and it kind of loses you lose a lot of trust amongst your set of consumers. So I've
Yeah.
seen it needs to be one needs to strike a balance between authenticity and how beautifully you present it. Even it need not look like something that you would have eaten at a very fancy restaurant. It
Correct.
needs to look home cooked. And I
Pure.
always remember Nigella saying the same thing. It is home cooked food,
yes.
and it needs to look a little home cooked. It needs to look authentic. It needs to look very relatable. Otherwise, you will find a lot of consumers getting intimidated and not finding relatability with that food.
No, that's a very good point, and that's been the trend in food Instagram over the last year and a half in India and globally. That there's been this entire movement towards showing food the way it's meant to be
Yes.
locally and at home, and not just in India, but whether it's in Israel or Europe or whatever. People are moving away from the Michelin star way of showing food to the way
Yes.
food is
Yes.
had at home, and on Instagram over the last 1 year in India, I mean, thali based shots, karai based shots, pressure cooker based shots, or a picture of a granny, even if it's like shot in a bit diffuse way, versus someone who's very nicely done up. I think that's working very well. So I've got
Yes.
one more question before I give it to Nidhi for her section, and it's sort of leading in from this last point which you made, which is, if I might say, keep it real. So now most of the home chefs may, or maybe not, but maybe many people might feel a bit intimidated by technology. Most people will not be able to hire an agency of any scale, and it might not make sense for them to do in the beginning. Sometimes maybe there might be some family folks who might help them or whatever. So some pointers from your end, basis what you've learned, that what can home chefs do to make this social media effective? That without having to go to an agency, even if you're running it, that what are the principles you have to keep in mind? Then, of course, some of the technicalities you can always figure out through workshops and all that, also how to take better pictures or how to cross link and all that. But what are the principles to keep in mind?
So I think, and I always believe in this, that that if you really stay real, like if you, the person that you are, your uniqueness essentially, why do you find a lot of people follow, us? We're not really strategic, real people, right? We probably have some 200, 300 followers, and they somehow, you find a lot of engagement from those people because they believe you as a person. So imagine yourself as a person, and think of how you would be on your social, on your Facebook or on your Instagram, in the food space. So I think there has to be that level of authenticity that you will need to kind of bring alive, and some kind of, the how do you bring alive your own personality is something that pays, is what I've seen. We've and I'll probably name a few famous
Yeah,
creators.
please,
Like for
please,
example,
please.
you know how Hebbar's Kitchen, like for example, how Hebbar's Kitchen cooks, right? It's really relatable, very humble looking kitchen, and she will tell you tips and tricks which you can adopt at home, right? Versus say an Archana's Kitchen, who kind of thinks through and does a lot of brand associations, etc. So the level of, so Archana's Kitchen actually has moved away a little bit. You can treat her probably that, content destination as probably
You're talking about Archana Doshi. Archana Doshi.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
she's become
Yes.
more like a website now. She
Like a
started as
brand, like a brand in
blogger, but
itself,
now
like a
she's
content creator, like a
yes.
brand in itself. But if you on as opposed to that, if you look at, there is this lady called Meghna, Chef Meghna, who cooks in, a lot of South Indian stuff. Then there is Hebbar's Kitchen. Then Hebbar's Kitchen is very big, but at the same time, they've not really lost the authenticity and the simplicity and the relatability of it, because I think the pulse of the audience is what matters. I think the critical mass of the audience for her essentially is someone who's probably has a very basic kitchen, doesn't really have too many fancy ingredients, and hence wants to cook a great meal. So what are the tips and tricks, and how do you will always see that in Hebbar's Kitchen, there is, when she's baking something, she will give you an option of baking it in a oven and baking in a pressure cooker as well. So I think think of yourself, what do you kind of bring on the table as a person, and just like how you would bring alive your own social media. I think if you think of it like that, perhaps it's a good starting point. But once it becomes a little large, is when you can, there are many options. There are existing platforms like YouTube, Facebook, really nurture home chefs today. There are, enterprise programs that are run, which kind of arm you with tools and information so that you are able to even give you seed funding to kind of enable you to kind of run your business on these platforms. So I think there are many options there, but I think the humble Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, in my opinion, WhatsApp is probably the biggest tool or dissemination tool that you would have, at your disposal, and stay true to what you're cooking. Stay true to what you're cooking. If you try to make too much of an effort, I have seen, you will perhaps, falter, because I know for a fact that these are all passionate passionate.
And I think that people are willing to give that margin of error.
Yes,
Like
absolutely.
if you're true to yourself, even if thoda spelling mistake or thoda,
so it is actually even endearing to a lot of people.
Yes.
It becomes like, if you remember that there is this guy called Cooking Shooking,
Yes, cooking.
That's his signature, the way he speaks or the way he kind of
that's Yaman, right? Yaman.
Yes.
Yaman, one of the youngest creators. We were in a YouTube camp
so
together 3-4 years back.
Yes,
He'd
so
come with his dad.
authentic, so relatable. People enjoy his simplicity and people's simplicity. So I think trying too hard perhaps alienates people a little bit, is in my opinion. And that's how we even choose our content creators to work with. And when we and when you find your audience, so for example, Cooking Shooking has critical mass of audience who probably don't know how to cook. These are people who are probably making an idli for the first time. So, the relatability is that much higher, and brands then probably go ahead and choose chefs accordingly to kind of work with them and stuff like that.
Right.
So keep it real, be true to yourself. I think those are wise words, and let your social media be a reflection of who you are. So, why you say something, Anushka?
And also the fact that do not shy away from learning. It's never too late to learn how to operate your Instagram accounts. There are courses all over. If you're really serious about building your online profile, it is important that you understand it a little bit. The most basic versions of courses are available. It's never too late to learn. And do not get alienated by technology and social media. It is as simple. It becomes a reflection of you over a period of time. If our parents can be so heavy on social media today.
Yes, my mom is.
Yes, my mom. So
yes. So talking of moms now, Nidhi is going to be the school mistress, and she's going to ask you some very pointed questions, and please give some very pointed answers to that. Over to you.
So my segment is called, what would you do? What would Anushri do? Right. And this is like, let's say you are a home chef today. If you weren't handling digital for IDC, if you weren't doing anything else, but today, if you were a home chef cooking whatever you would like, right? Wherever you would like. Now I'm going to ask you questions as if you were a home chef, and I would ask you, what would you do if you were in their shoes, right? So let's say it's your first day when you've decided that you want to be a home chef today. You've already figured out what you're going to cook, how you're going to cook, your recipes, your trials, everything's done. Now it comes to actually putting yourself out there. Now, what are the kind of social media, since you're starting from zero, right? There's no existing social media except for your personal social media. So what are the kind of social medias that, you would start with?
I would start with, if WhatsApp is social media, no. I mean, I would probably start with creating a WhatsApp group. And know that, if I would have cooked a little bit, I would still have a little circle of influence. I would have still my friends and family who would help me proliferate what I'm cooking. So I'll start first with a WhatsApp group, and then an Instagram account, and Instagram and Facebook together, because, although Facebook has become, the organic reach is minuscule, but I would start with both Instagram and Facebook. Focus more on Instagram, because I would really want to put out what I'm cooking. And it enables me, gives me enough and more tools to kind of really, whether it's beautifying my content, what's on my mind, ask for a poll. I can even design my menu on Instagram. I can ask 20 people, run a poll and say, what should I cook for breakfast tomorrow? So, or what should my festive meal look like? This or that, this or that. There's so many things that Instagram enables you to do. So I think these two would be my weapons of choice to begin with.
And you can also, in any case, take the Instagram content and put it on Facebook. So without any extra effort.
Yes.
Yeah. So you can keep it going.
The idea is to make my content travel a little bit. So from my Instagram, it needs to go to somebody else's WhatsApp, or from my WhatsApp, somebody who ate what I cooked, as presumably I'm cooking well, they posted it and quoted me and stuff like that. So that's how I think the starting points are. I think the two platforms of choice for me would be WhatsApp and Instagram.
Beautiful.
And then WhatsApp actually enables you to even run your business. Payments can happen there. lots of things can happen.
WhatsApp catalog and all of those.
So you can do WhatsApp Pay, you can integrate it with the Google Pay. There are many things that you can do. So I think you pretty much can run your business through WhatsApp.
Okay. Would you recommend, or would you, as a home chef now, would you get into building your own like a basic website or something? Or if you will, when will that be in the stage of building your brand up?
So when I have critical mass of followers, I really do not want to see how do I be discovered? How would I be discovered? I either would be discovered through word of mouth, or when someone's looking for my content on, say, Instagram, or looking for content, food content on Instagram or YouTube, I pop up, organically. So that's how I get discovered, right? So so I think third-party platforms to begin with is absolutely, you don't really have to build your website, in my opinion.
Website, blog, whatever you call it.
Blogs, if you really want to, if you have a very strong point of view about ingredients. So think about how the consumer searches. The consumer searches on how to do this, that, or how to make this without baking powder or something like that, right? That's how the consumer searches. If I'm creating content around certain problem areas and the consumer is likely to search for that, then written content makes a difference, because then I am also kind of driving some sort of SEO. But to begin with, I think none of us are writers, right? So I think, but we are good with our smartphones. We can shoot videos. We have trained ourselves to do all of that. We can click pictures, we can click videos and stuff like that. The best thing to do in the beginning is to really make the most of these democratic third-party platforms, which is Instagram to begin with. And if you're creating video content, you want to really showcase your skills and give ideas and want to make a brand of yourself as someone who's a little bit of a thought leader in certain spaces, put out YouTube videos as well as IGTV videos. To begin with.
YouTube is a bit slow though, right? To pick up YouTube compared to IGTV and all that.
Yes, YouTube takes a little time, but if you have a bank of content that you want to create, that I want to, for example, I really want to teach everyone how to bake without a oven, and I have like 5 recipes that I want to probably shoot in the next 10 days. Then over a period of time, you will be discoverable. So I think YouTube also, SEO plays a really large role. But if you are really consistent, if you really know that you will be consistently putting out content, you much rather use the YouTube algorithm to be discovered a little bit.
So tell me, so on the, let's say if we're only sticking to Instagram as a platform for now, right? Because whatever we're putting on Instagram can go on Facebook. So let's look at Instagram as the main space right now. So what kind of content would you recommend that, home chefs, or what kind of
Not
content?
recommend. She would put. What is the content she would put?
Sorry, I corrected myself. What kind of content would you put out as a home chef? Besides photos and things.
Yeah, I would put out my daily menus. If I have I would put out my daily menus. From the daily menus, I will put out my star dishes every day as a religiously, as someone who's, imagine if I'm an Instagram heavy person, I would have Instagram stories every 8 hours, for example. I should do the same with my food Instagram account as well. So I should religiously put out my menus. I should pick out 2 or 3 hero items from my menu and put out the finished product. That's my content. Then I should push some of my patrons to put out content and use their content. Some review that somebody would have written that I loved this food and I absolutely, this made my day kind of reviews. So try to cross post some of your some of your patrons posts as well. Show them, because you're a home chef and you are catering to people, show them how your food is getting delivered. Is it safe? How is it packaged? How is it plated? Is it how is it getting delivered? If you're using a Swiggy Genie or a Dunzo, click a picture of those people as well, tag Dunzo, all sorts of ways to get discovered. If you have remotely used a brand, tag that brand, push them to put you on their story so that you get discovered. So be shameless in pushing people to post about you so that you find as many avenues as possible to be discovered.
Beautiful. So I love your the whole take on it, because it gives a very overall picture of what's happening Because in restaurants, we can't do any of this, right? We can't show that the chef is cooking the food and is getting delivered here. You can't show the kitchen, you can't show anything. But here you have the chance to actually showcase and showcase your individuality, showcase all of these things actually add to the individuality. So it's beautiful that, Home Chef can show all these things. I love the content that you'll be
And
doing.
also the fact that you should never be threatened with a home cook. Like, for example, if you have a tip or a trick, give it away. Don't be economical with giving ideas to people. Why not? I mean, because you've really learned, you are probably self-learned and you've not really, you've learned on the job kind of a thing. So give it out. Be this wise person or an opinion leader in a group, in your group of, in your little community or a circle of influence, and be the front runner in terms of giving ideas to people.
Beautiful.
Okay, rapid fire, because we are running out of time. Then we'll cross the Instagram.
Yes, I'm also running out of time.
So
rapid fire.
Last question for my segment here. So my last question to you is, as a home chef, let's say if you didn't come from the digital background at all, if you just created your Instagram account today, right? So what are the top five skills that you think you should learn as a home chef to start like an online brand or digital?
I think very quickly, you don't have to. I mean, don't consider myself as coming from a digital background as a digital marketer. If I were a person who's a consumer of digital, a user of digital, there are a few things that you could do, which is, write a really cool bio for yourself, put your picture really well, follow a bunch of people so that you also get discovered. Those are things that we do anyway as users. And write, probably put out as often as possible, put out stories, because stories have a little bit of a higher organic reach than, a regular post. So I think these are few things that you would do for yourself as a user. And think of the 18-year-old who is perpetually posting, be that a little bit. And I think that enables a lot of discoverability. Sometimes, these really young people's content become viral, or they travel platforms simply because of the frequency of posting and the amount and the plethora of content that they consistently post. So I think become that a little bit. Consistency.
The teenager in you, basically.
Yes. Be be a little active. If you probably I post once in 3 days. Don't be that. Probably post 3 times in a day, perhaps. So I think that really helps. But how to make your Instagram handle a good destination to be in? So, arrange your stories in your highlights in a particular manner. All of those good things that the platform actually gives you. Do all of that.
Right. Totally. I think that's it from me, Kalyan. Thank you so much, Anushree. That was great.
Awesome.
No, thanks. It's been a fabulous conversation, because while, the last segment was about tips, but I think the entire chat was about such practical tips and ideas and answers from you, Anushree. So thanks so much for your support to the Home Cheffies and your belief in the cause and all that you shared today. I'm sure it's going to be very, very useful. And I would request people to sort of share it, like it, subscribe to it, everything, right?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.